so that you may lead us into true wisdom. May all that we say and do in the service of the county, whether as elected member or as officer, be in accordance with your will and for the good of your people. Amen. Thank you, everybody. Evacuation procedure. In the event of having to evacuate the council chamber, would everyone leave by one of the two exits at the rear of the chamber? Officers will be on hand to assist anybody with disabilities. Mobile phones. May I ask all members who have mobile phones with them to ensure that they are switched off so they do not disturb the meeting. God, airplane mode. Yep. Right. Chairman's announcements. Armed Forces Week. On Monday 19th of June, to mark the start of Armed Forces Week, Neil Millett, an RAF veteran and chairman of the local Royal Air Forces Association, raised the Armed Forces Day flag at a ceremony that I hosted here at Standeasy. On Saturday the 24th of June, together with the Lord Lieutenant and Lord Mayor of Leicester, I attended the Armed Forces Day in Leicester City. There was a parade through the city centre which was made up of service personnel, veterans and cadets. Following the parade, there was a drumhead service in Green Dragon Square. It was a very moving occasion. It was very good. County service. I'll be hosting a county service later in the year and all members will receive an invitation in due course. The NHS. Today is the 75th birthday of the NHS. And for those of you who want to know a bit more, there's actually quite a good stand just outside the members' lounge behind us, which I advise you all to have a little look at. There's some very good photographs there of early days of the NHS and how local people are involved with it. It's very good. But anyway, today, happy birthday, NHS. Agenda item number 2, minutes. I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 17th of May 2023, copies of which have been circulated to members, be taken as read, confirmed and signed. Mr Orson?
Pleased to second the minutes, Mr Chairman.
Thank you very much. I invite members who wish to do so to make declarations of interest in respect of items on the agenda to this meeting. I am assuming that all members will wish to declare a non-registerable interest in item 8A, which is the report of the Independent Remuneration Panel on members' allowances. Are there any other declarations? Okay, thank you very much. Right, over page. Agenda item number 4. Questions and answers. This is questions asked under Standing Order 7, 1, 2 and 5. The questions and replies are set out in the order paper and be taken as read and entered into the minutes. But I've received notice of a supplementary question from Mr Mullaney. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Chairman, and thank you to Mr O'Shea for the response to my question. I'm sorry that the 159 subsidy couldn't be restored. It was a service that a lot of people used and appreciated in Hinckley and the villages. In the appendix that was part of the response to the question, it does mention that there is to be a pause to the review of the 26 subsidised services, including the Hinckley Nuneaton service that goes through my area. Can he offer some specifics to the residents that use those services as to what the term pause actually means? Do we take it that the pause to the review is in effect a permanent pause, that those services won't be reviewed in future? Is it a matter of next financial year? Is it a matter of a few months? Could he give any sort of specifics to residents who might be concerned as to what exactly that time frame mentioned there is? Thank you.
Mr O'Shea.
Certainly can, Mr Mullaney. It's a pleasure to answer your question. A pause is a pause. It means it's going to start again. So basically what will happen is that we've been given this money that will temporarily let us pause it while we review all the services across the county, but then they will all be reviewed again later on in the year, because the money will not last from beyond the year. So it will be paused for a temporary period, but we will be looking at it across the whole piece, across the county, in a more, way that we can look at the best things for the county. We don't want to cut bus services at all, and you appreciate that, but we are guided by the finances that this council gets from government and what we get, but we want to do the best for our citizens. That's why we're pausing it, being able to have this money to look at it in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr O'Shea. Agenda item number 5, receive position statements from members of the Cabinet. I'll now invite the Leader to make his position statement. When the Leader has finished his statement, I will invite members to speak. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand or indicate, and I will then call you to speak. I'm going to invite Mrs Hack and Mr Mullaney to speak last before the Leader's right of reply. Leader.
Chairman, thank you very much. So you have my position statement in front of you, and I'll just accentuate a few of the remarks. So on Active Travel England, over the last few months, we've successfully worked with Active Travel England to demonstrate our commitment and move us forward to being able to bid for capital funding to deliver walking and cycling facilities across the county. A lot of you turned up to the presentation that Active Travel gave to members in June, and that we need to be informed advocates of active travel to place in the best position to secure funding for active travel schemes and choose how you move programmes that benefit our communities. This will be along with our ongoing work to develop local cycling and walking infrastructure plans. We hope this new positive relationship with Active Travel England will bear fruits in funding for Leicestershire. Greener Leicestershire, some good news. We're now up to 250,000 trees since the commitment at the beginning of the administration. I think there's actually more. I just think it's sometimes really kind of hard to count them all because they're not all planted by us and various people are planting them. So in the spirit of trying to identify how many were planted, if you do find any in your other roles as councillors in the county, please inform us so we can add them to the total. We also launched a booklet on ash dieback. It will be serious. Very, very few of the ash will survive. There's a lot in our verges, but there is a lot more which are owned by other people throughout the county. So it is really serious, the ash dieback. Local nature recovery strategy. As you know, we've now formally been appointed as the responsible authority for Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland to develop the recovery strategy, and it will, in due course, it will form a major part of planning applications and stuff that are submitted throughout the county. So it's a good responsibility to get. We just hope they give us some good money to do it rather than just giving us jobs and not giving us the money. Supporting veterans, further to your announcements, Chairman, I'd like to say that we continue this year as ever to be proud of the support those who served in the armed forces regularly or as reserves, as well as those who have previously served and those in our wider forces families. Pam will say something in a little while on it as well. During Armed Forces Week, Pam, Tom Pennell and Lieutenant Colonel Field re-signed our Armed Forces Covenant. Within the Council, we continue to support veterans into our workplace and have built links with both the Defence Military Rehabilitation Centre, which is just across the border, as you know, and Career Transition Partnership. We also have a dedicated employee network and are part of the partnership supporting the Veterans Wellbeing Hub, and I thank Pam for the work she does in this area because I think she does a really good job. On the Household Support Fund, we have a new £7.5 million pot of money awarded by the Department of Work and Pensions for the residents of Leicestershire who need support with rising food and energy costs. Eligible households can receive an average of £200 in vouchers, and we recognise that there are people out there who are struggling, and this will help them through these difficult times. We have now made £22 million of wide-ranging support available to help ease the cost of living pressures in total, and we've got a good guy who actually heads it up, Richard Hunt. I think originally he came from Peterborough, just to be head of Country Parks, but since he's been here, he seems to have accumulated a lot more jobs. I find him a good guy, and he's coordinating this on our behalf. And he does such a good job of it. He was actually the only one invited on behalf of this local authority to speak to the Work and Pensions Committee in Parliament about the, about the cost of living. Health in all policies. I hope members will join me in welcoming the approach being taken to embed health in all policies across the County Council. Committee reports will now make reference to health implications, and we are delivering training to our officers. So you'll notice this as another paragraph at the bottom of reports, and it is serious, and we should take account of health in all policies. I'll stop there, Chairman.
Mr O'Shea.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to elaborate a little bit on Active Travel if it comes under my portfolio. Last year, Active Travel England became the government's executive agency responsible for making walking, wheeling and cycling the preferred choice for everyone to go around England. They're responsible for allocating funding to local authorities for active travel. Last summer, Active Travel invited local authorities to complete a self-assessment process to rate themselves on a scale of 0 to 4, 4 being the highest, based on their delivery record and commitment to active travel since the publication of Gear Change, the government's future vision of cycling and walking in England, and new cycling design guidance, the local transport note of 120 in July 2020. The council rated itself 1, but Active Travel later moderated this to 0, largely due to the lack of government funding allowing delivery of a transformative scheme in time. The latest design standards, as well as the response to the removal of one of our emergency active travel cycling schemes implemented during the pandemic. Whilst we were very disappointed, the officers have engaged closely and productively with Active Travel England to evidence the Council's commitment to active travel. I'm pleased to say £190,000 has been successfully secured from Active Travel England, match funded by the Council, to deliver the agreed action plan aimed at improving our score to at least 1 by this summer, which would then open the door for future funding opportunities. The action plan includes Active Travel England engaging with members to help become informed advocates of the active travel agenda, preliminary design work for active travel schemes on the A6 at Oadby, a member-supported public engagement event on the 3rd of July showcasing potential active travel schemes, more school street trials, building on the successful trials last year, additional training for our engineers on the latest technical design guidance. We are also developing local cycling and walking infrastructure plans for the market towns and the urban areas surrounding Leicester City, which will set out a strategic approach to identifying long-term cycling and walking improvements and make the case for future investment through funding bids and developer contributions. Helping move towards this goal as part of the Active Travel England plan, our action plan, there was an information event on the Monday the 3rd of July in Oadby to give people in Leicestershire an understanding of what local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, locally known as LC WIPS, is, and to give them the opportunity to see the plans of future improvements that Leicestershire County Council aspires to and wants to deliver. The meeting was open to everyone and was held at Trinity Methodist Church, Harbour Road, Oadby. I went along with that as the lead member and met councillors and representatives of cycling across Leicestershire. There was a very positive mood from our cycling community, and I want to put on record our positivity from this council and from Highways Department that we will work with them to deliver the best for Leicestershire with the funding that will hopefully be coming in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr O'Shea. Mrs Posnett.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour about what we do in Armed Forces. So we have quarterly employee networks meetings, and these are for employees which I chair. We have a quarterly meeting of the Civil military partnership meetings, which are Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. And these include representatives from health, we have somebody from LPT, charities, the local brigade and the Ministry of Defence. And we also host some of these, but the meetings are probably shared around a little bit within the area. We have an internal strategic armed forces strategy group to monitor and support the Covenant and the associated legislation that goes with that. And a little while ago, I was contacted by a physiotherapy from Stamford Hall, the rehabilitation centre, who had got, she was treating a young man who lives in Leicestershire, and she'd heard about the work that we do with veterans. He was due to be medically discharged from the army because of his injuries, and she wondered if we could help. So we've got a veteran who works in highways, who went out and met the physiotherapist and this gentleman, and when he's got over a few hurdles that he's got left, there is a job that we have got for him, and that's because that's somebody who lives in Leicestershire. And I do believe that if we hadn't got this sort of set up, that would probably never have happened. And so I was really pleased about that. And it was an honour and a privilege to sign the covenant last week on behalf of Leicestershire County Council. And at that event, we had some local employers, who had either not signed the covenant or were at bronze stage and didn't really know how they could progress from it. And we had a CEO from a company in Leicestershire who spoke at the event, and he employs veterans, and he was explaining to everybody why veterans are really good to employ, because they're ex-services, they know how to organise the day, they know how to carry out instructions, and they've got lots of skills like leadership skills. If it's driving you want, they've got licenses to drive all sorts of transport. So he was very supportive about employing veterans. So it was a really successful evening, and I think everybody got something from it. And thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Posnett. Mr. Payne.
Many thanks, Chairman. Firstly, can I thank the leader for keeping the green agenda and the environment agenda more generally central to the County Council's agenda, and specifically central to his leader's statement. There are two aspects within the leader's statement. One is greener Leicestershire, and I'd just like to reiterate what the leader said, in that how proud we are to have reached the 250,000th tree mark of planting in Leicestershire. Prior to starting this agenda, we were planting or supporting about 20,000 trees. So it seriously is a major achievement to announce that we're at the 250,000 tree mark. But of course, we do need every part of Leicestershire and everybody, if they can, to play their part. And it would help immensely if development companies or indeed district and borough councils know of planting on certain developments. We're able to use the registration form on the tree website here at the Leicestershire County Council to record those trees. It's actually quite simple, and there's an interactive map which you can click on which will locate the particular tree that's being planted. But that would help us to account for increasing amount of trees that are being planted in Leicestershire, and obviously the environmental benefits that those trees bring. In terms of the Green Leicestershire agenda, it's probably worth noting that we're working with Nature Spot, which is a third sector organisation, to improve biodiversity. And we've recently announced that 37,000 square metres of highway verges, supported by 60 parish councils, are being earmarked for improved biodiversity. So that's an achievement too. On the local nature recovery policy, I think it's worthy of being raised here at full council. Those that are following the environment scrutiny agenda, and in particular the meetings that we have, would have probably had an in-depth look more recently at what the local nature recovery strategy is. And it's a flagship piece of government legislation, a part of the Environment Bill, that seeks to earmark certain spatial places and strategies for improved biodiversity and habitats. And some say post-Brexit it could be a way, following farmer subsidies from the EU, of providing farmers with incentives to improve these areas. But we are one of 48 areas in the whole country that have been allocated as lead and responsible authority for this. So our duty will be to work with Rutland, Leicester City, all the districts in Leicestershire to put a strategy together, which we've been awarded over £300,000 to do. The only thing I'd say, it's an honour to be able to do this work, and we'll do it in a very consensual way, because we want this to be a great policy that the whole of Leicestershire can benefit from. But we will require further monies from central government once this strategy has been adopted in order to implement it properly. It has a statutory status, as much as safeguarding children has a statutory status. This is a very important piece of work that we're doing here. But of course, with statutory responsibilities, we'll need some statutory funding too. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to thank the leader and the lead member, Mrs. Posnett, and indeed yourself for the continuing contribution and promoting and championing of the armed forces, reserve forces, and indeed veterans. It's a common misconception that veterans are all in the 70s and 80s, and nothing can be further from the truth. The vast majority of veterans leave the services in their 30s and 40s. And I can tell you, well, I can attest firsthand how difficult it is, the transition from a long career in the military into civilian life. So I'd really like to thank Mrs. Posnett for all your hard work that you do. And congratulations again on the County Council signing the covenant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Posnett, your light's still on.
Oh, sorry.
It hasn't affected us so far, but I just thought it was glaring in my eye. Mrs. Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say how pleased I am at having health in all policies. I do think it's really important that we look at the wider determinants of health going forward. Active Travel England, great to hear that we're making some inroads now with them. I think we've got a number of groups setting up around the county who are really involved and wanting to push this agenda forward, and it'd be great to take their input on board. And the Household Support Fund, we have got a team that's working very hard at trying to deal with all the applications coming in. So I just want to put on record my thanks to all the work they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Richardson. Mrs. Radford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I found it very interesting that we've had extra explanations to all these, the leaders' points, especially for Mrs. Posnett for all the extra information about the veteran support, and I do support that widely. Active Travel England, and I'm afraid Ozzy's going to be really cross with me. I'm very pleased about looking at school travel implications. And you know, I've got a school in my area where cars park on people's drives and everything, so I ask that that can be looked at. Thank you.
Yeah, ditto there, I think. I think we're all the same. Mr. Poland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank the leader for his statement. We talked about trees and the importance of trees and the massive achievement of having 250,000 new trees in the county, and I very much welcome that and hope to see that continue and grow, if you'll excuse the pun, in the months and years to come. It's so important that as the county with the fewest trees, that we not only grow new trees but preserve those important trees that we have. And trees are vitally important, not just for environmental reasons as much as that is, but also the aesthetic look on our communities, and in a lot of cases as well, the heritage impact of trees in our villages. In my division, one of my villages, Cosington, has a row of trees, each planted to mark a major occasion in the 20th century. Most of those were coronations of monarchs, but one was to commemorate the life of Winston Churchill at the point he died in the 60s. That tree is now under threat, unfortunately, because of a planning application that's immediately next to the site. And I think it's so important to the residents of Cosington for cultural, as I said, because it's part of the heritage of the village. But unfortunately, we didn't have that on record. It's not a protected tree, and therefore, when the consultation come in, with the best will in the world, we didn't have the heritage importance of the tree on file, and therefore it didn't sort of come up in the response. really, I guess what I would ask is whether we can have a way of getting a register for the heritage importance of trees. Now, that might be like in Cossington, where we have planted for special occasions, but it could be those ancient trees that are growing up and that we all knew as children, and our grandchildren, our grandparents would have known as children, that are so important in our communities. And that's really what I just wanted to ask and see if there's any way we can really ingrain the cultural and as I say, heritage of our communities in these trees when planning applications come in, so that we don't accidentally risk their loss just through nobody's fault except records. Thank you.
Important. Thanks, Mr. Palin. Yes, I mean, TPO is the obvious things, but as you say, if they haven't got TPO, yes, it's different. Mrs. Newton.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll be quite brief. I just noted that there's health and recruitment and retention pressures for both social services, for both the city and ourselves. Next year, this council will take over the running and chairing of the Joint Health Group. For the past 2 years, it's been the city. It rotates on a 2-year basis, as most people will be aware of. So I think that there are serious challenges facing us in the future in terms of recruiting and retention of staff. I think there's increased demand from the ageing population that we have, as well as supply and demand pressures too. So, and this has all been exacerbated because of COVID and etc. And lots of workers in that sector are doing long shifts and they're not managing that very well either. So I think we really need to look at seeing how we and the city too can work towards increasing and improving working conditions for staff in that sector and indeed other sectors as well. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Newton. Mrs. Hack.
Thank you, Chair. Really useful position statement as usual. I think one of the things that thank you to Ozzy and Louise. I've got the honour of being able to say that we've actually been able to open part of the planned walking cycling route from Lowestoft into the city, and that happened just a week or so ago. I think it's a really important infrastructure plan for Leicestershire, but clearly the link through Lowestoft is going to be a really positive one. But it really shows what we can do as an authority when we work with our partners in Blaby, in the city, with the private sector and Sustrans, and I think it's a really important partnership that we should be shouting from the rooftops. And it was really great to welcome Louise and Ozzy into my division. It's my patch to open that. In terms of Greener Leicestershire update, always great to hit a key milestone in terms of tree planting, so congratulations to the team. I think one of the things that I've really been interested to see also is the thing that I always feel is that we should be planting with a purpose. And when sat on environment and climate change scrutiny last year before last, I was very focused on making sure that we were also looking at community orchards and the work that can do and the roles that they can play within communities. I'm really lucky my division has a community orchard, and I've seen that there's been some real move forward into improving and increasing the number of orchards across Leicestershire, so I think that's really positive. I think also in terms of making sure we count our trees, I think there is clearly maybe we could look at all of the additional Queen's canopies that were added during the Platinum Jubilee and whether or not there's a connection there also. In terms of supporting veterans, I was also really pleased to see that the County Council re-signed our commitment towards a covenant. Well done, Pam, on your work for that. Is always appreciated. In terms of the Household Support Fund, I think it'd be really useful if the leader could let us know whether the work that we've been trying to do to get to those individuals that need that so very much, are those individuals that need it accessing it, and are we confident that those individuals that are the most vulnerable are accessing those services? Certainly in my working life, I work for a housing association, and some of the individuals who live in homes of multiple occupancy, they haven't always benefited from those household level led grants through no fault of their own, just because of knowledge and getting that information out there. And I was also really happy to see health in all policies. I think if you read the strategy for Leicestershire that covers 2022 to 2032, you can see health is essentially a undercutting through everything that we do. So actually seeing that in all our policies is a huge step forward, and I was really pleased to see that. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mrs. Hack. I mean, you're right about orchards. I mean, and it's actually I took what Mr. Payne said about this online form of registering them, because my parish hasn't registered either its orchard or its brand new Queen's Walk. We're putting 70 trees in, so I've taken that note. Mr. Mullaney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in terms of the statement, in terms of active travel, we certainly want to encourage people to cycle and walk more and use wheelchairs and mobility scooters with confidence that it will be safe for them to do so, because we want to have alternatives to motor travel in terms of the health and well-being benefits of people not using cars, of the environmental benefits, and also just the general benefits of making roads safer. It was disappointing that active travel rated Leicestershire 0, the lowest level, and it's disappointing that, again, a lot of that stemmed from the lack of government funding for Leicestershire. Hopefully we will now see some progress made on this recently. I met a representative of the Cycling UK group recently, the Leicestershire representative, who was keen to see active travel given a higher priority in the county, so I'm glad to see that it's on the statement today, and hope we can make some progress on it. Greener Leicestershire, we welcome the policy of planting more trees and are glad that there's been progress on this and we've hit the milestone of 250,000. In terms of supporting veterans, it's good to see the Armed Forces Covenant has been signed again, and well done to Pam for all the good work that she does in this area. There was a very good Armed Services event held here at County Hall, and also there was a very well attended event in Hinckley on Armed Forces Day, and I think residents do appreciate the huge sacrifices that veterans make, and we have to make sure that we don't forget them after they leave the forces. In terms of Household Support Fund, I mean, I welcome this extra support. It's certainly the case that many people in Leicestershire, as well as the rest of the country, are struggling at the moment. Levels of poverty are rising, and at this time, a difficult time, the government really does need to do more. So this is a start. I recently met with representatives from the Hinckley Food Bank, and they presented information on their work, and that they've had a 5-fold increase in the number of people they've been supporting in the last 10 years, which really shows just how much this extra support is needed and how many people are struggling. Health in all policies. I agree we need to absolutely make sure that health is an essential part of what we do, and obviously on this 75th anniversary of the NHS, it's a difficult time for the NHS at the moment. People are waiting long times for GPs, often for ambulances, often on waiting lists. The NHS is in a difficult situation at the moment, but hopefully what can be done locally, we can do our bit to help. Certainly it's important to mention the inequalities in health and the fact that, sadly, after many years of rising life expectancies in recent years, the average life expectancies have begun to fall, and in fact we've ended up 29th, I think, in the World League table for life expectancy, which was significantly down on where the United Kingdom had been in previous years. So I welcome this work that's being done here. Obviously, we are against a backdrop of very difficult times for people, very difficult times financially and with the health service, and whatever we can do locally, we obviously welcome that, but generally speaking, it's a very difficult time, and we really do need to see more support from the government for the most struggling people in our communities.
Thank you, Mr. Mullaney. Mr. Rushton.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Can I thank Amanda and Michael for generally positive comments about the work we're doing, and a lot of these things in here we do want to work together on them. Most of them are above and beyond politics, so thanks for your general support. on active travel, as Ozzy said, we were exceedingly disappointed to be moderated down from 1 to 0, but we are hopefully now getting off on a new foot with Active Travel England. I think we really ended up on 0 because of the hoo-ha we had over one particular cycle lane, which I think was in Bristol, if my recollection is correct, where we put it in and residents and that didn't like it, the Member of Parliament didn't like it. I took a lot of stick and emails about it and removed it. And I think that set us back to 0. And I think they tacitly admitted that when they came to see us. But they are keen to work with us for the future. And you've heard what Ozzy has said. We're keen to work with them. They seem to be able to say to us that there's money available for all manner of schemes. So a fresh start with Active Travel England is very positive. Can I again thank Pam for the work that she does on the veterans? I mean, Craig, he is actually a veteran, so that's the average age of a veteran we get. They're not all my age and older, they're like Craig's age and younger. So I think we should be incredibly proud of the work we do as a county council as a whole in supporting veterans. Because as Craig says, you know, sometimes when you come out of the Army, Air Force, Navy as a man or a woman or whatever you happen to call yourself nowadays, it is hard sometimes to get back into regular employment. So I think we should be super proud of what we're doing. On Blake and the trees and the green agenda, again, it's something which we all agree with here. It will be useful if we can get more people to tell us where they've planted trees. Kevin's Chairman, just told me he's planted some in his area which we didn't know about. We do need to find out about them. James, I'll ask Blake to have a look into this heritage tree question. I thought they were spot listed by district councils when one is at threat from a housing development, which you obviously don't want out there, but you know, the principle of saving heritage trees is a sound one. And I also thought Amanda had a good idea about community orchards, Blake. I mean, I know they are very, very popular. We tend to plant big, long-growing trees, but community orchards would count in my book as a tree and would benefit local communities. So I'll ask Blake again to have a look at see if there is anything we can do to promote community orchards. The nature recovery strategy, it's only a short paragraph in here and we've only been given 300,000 to actually do the strategy, but it will be exceedingly important piece of work when it's done because it will impinge on every single planning application above a certain size in the county, and it is a flagship government policy. Blake is well up to speed on it. We did do a briefing. We were a bit patchy with the amount of people we got to attend, but if you do want to know anything about it, just email into the chief and we'll get you the information because it is a big piece of legislation and a big piece of work and going to get bigger. Louise, on health in all policies and household support fund, well, we're pretty proud of what we've done. As Michael says, we can always do with more money. And as Amanda said, are the most vulnerable accessing the fund? I think they are, but I'll ask the chief to get you a note on how we're trying to make sure that the most vulnerable people do access the fund. And I think that about covers everything. So thank you for your generally positive comments.
Thank you, Leader. Just one other comment about trees. One of the things I've noticed now over the last 15 months, isn't it, and I've been fortunate to be driven around the county, is just the general landscape, how many more ash trees are dying. Obviously, most of them on private land, farms and so on, but it's going to devastate our landscape. We've planted 250,000 new ones, brilliant, but we're probably losing about 100,000 old ones, sadly, over the next umpteen years. But this year in particular, I think because of the dry weather, there've been so many more that just bare branches on the horizon. It's terrible looking. So keep a look out for that anyway in your areas. Statement. Again, if you wish to speak, please raise your hands. I'll then call you to speak. If Mrs. Hack or Mr. Mullaney wish to speak, I'll call them last before the lead member's right of reply. Thanks, Mrs. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'll start with our Ofsted focus visit. So in May this year, Ofsted undertook a focus business in Children and Families Department to look at our arrangements for children in care, with a particular focus on the children coming into care, our permanency planning for all those children, and the experience of disabled children in care. So the inspectors examined documents, looked at case records, talked to parents, carers, children, and met with frontline staff and senior leaders, including myself, which was a quite an intense half-hour discussion with Ofsted. So the letter that they sent back to us outlined the findings, was published on the 16th of June, and I would recommend Council do take a look at that. It is a really fantastic report, and this really recognised the significant improvements we've made since our last full inspection in 2019. Just some highlights to pick out from that was our social work practice with children in care, including those with a disability. It's consistently child-focused, therefore impacting positively on children's life experiences and their physical and emotional well-being. Ofsted inspectors also reported that social workers know their children well, and they speak with pride and affection about them. And children are visited regularly, and records of visits and work was described as being beautifully written. So social workers spoken to during the visit were unanimously positive about working in Leicestershire, and reported having manageable caseloads that enable them to spend time with children, and shows an ambition to continuously improve the lives of children in Leicestershire. Inspectors also complimented the strong political and corporate support within the County Council for Children's Services, and I'd just like to put on record, I'm sure the whole Council will support me in my thanks to our Director for Children and Families and our senior leadership team for all their hard work and the improvements they've made over the last few years. As I remind Council again, we are corporate parents for all the children in our care, so this reflects on all of us within this Council. On to Family Hubs. So I'm pleased to share with members over the last 2 months we've begun to open our Family Hubs across the county. So Family Hubs are a one-stop shop for parents and carers for children 0 to 19 years old and for children up to 25 with special education needs and disabilities. So Leicestershire is only one of 12 local authorities that received a portion of the 12 million grant from the Department for Education to transform the way services are delivered for families through the Family Hubs. So the hubs will offer a broad and integrated range of early help support to support families and build stronger relationships through the delivery of family advice, support services and guidance on issues such as social care, education, mental and physical health. And I think one of the most important things about the Family Hubs is our link to 2 really important national programmes. So one of them is Reducing Parental Conflict, a programme funded by the Department for Works and Pensions that raises awareness of the impact of unresolved parental conflict on children and develops practice models to respond to conflict in families. And the second one is the Supporting Families from the DLUC department, previously known as the Troubled Families, but we've never called that here in Leicestershire. We've already called it Supporting Families. And that provides targeted early help to families with multiple and complex needs. So the full network of our Family Hubs will make use of existing spaces such as our Children and Family Wellbeing centres as well as libraries across the county, and they're all expected to be open by spring 2024. There'll also be a website that's near enough up and running. Hopefully we'll get that done by by autumn, sorry. And we've had lots of contacts from other boroughs, councils, parish councils, community centres that are really interested in joining us and hosting a family hub in there and training their staff up to be able to signpost and be a support for families in their local communities. So we're hoping that after we've opened all our main hubs that we will have a lot more of these centres available for families right in their network so they don't have to travel anywhere to get that support that they need. So a really exciting project, and we're looking forward as that goes about how much we can expand that. On to our holiday activity fund, and I think this sort of fits in with what the leader was talking about with our household support fund. So the holiday activity fund programme is a national programme that supports school-aged children and young people receiving free school meals. So we're allocated about 1.5 million in the 22-23 year to deliver holiday activities and meal during the Easter, summer and winter school holidays. Over this period so far, 4,711 children accessed the programme and engaged in a range of physical and enriching activities as well as accessing a healthy meal. So this year we've allocated a similar level of grant, and programmes will be running over the summer, winter and Easter holidays again. This year we have more providers than ever offering sessions this summer, and there's a wide range of activities to take part in, such as zorbing, crafting, football, archery, nerfing, cookery, drama and dodgeball, and I hope to get out and visit some of those activities during this year. I don't think I'll be absorbing or taking part in dodgeball, but maybe some crafting or some cooking might be more appropriate for me. And in addition to this, we've been able to introduce free gym passes and coaching sessions that give young people an opportunity to keep active, try new sports and build on their skills they may already have, and we're thankful for the districts for supporting us in doing that as well. And finally, on to volunteers. So I'm really pleased to share that Leicestershire Children and Families Wellbeing Service volunteer team have been awarded the Investing in Volunteers Award. This award is the UK's quality standard for good practice in volunteering management. The Children and Family Wellbeing Service has a range of volunteers who provide an invaluable role across a range of areas, such as mentoring children, young people and supporting parents, running stay and play centres, supporting our community fridges, being an appropriate adult for young people during a police interview, and community panel members. So we are really, really grateful for the support provided across the department via volunteers. They are a highly valuable resource and integral part of our services we offer to children and families. So we want to put in record our thanks for them and congratulations on the award they received. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mrs Taylor. Some very good news. Mr Smith.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I'd just like to congratulate the lead member, Mrs Taylor, and also all the children and family services that we have here for a fantastic Ofsted report. It was my privilege to open the Melton Families Hub and also attend the Loughborough and the very memorable first opening in Colville, where the lead member was quite lucky not to suffer a concussion. That's another story, though. But they are actually a one-stop shop for families from birth to 18 and up to 25 with special educational needs. And they do support the authorities' endeavours to push forward with the support for all families within the area. Because after all, it's better to build strong children than it is to repair broken adults. So great work, people, and keep it going. Thank you.
Mrs Hack, do you want to say anything?
Thank you. Yeah, great. I just wanted to congratulate the team in their positive Ofsted. I think it's I think one of the things that we're all really aware of is our responsibilities to vulnerable children, and those children in care are the most vulnerable children that we have. So ensuring that we are providing the services that they need from us, and it is done positively through Ofsted, is actually testament to the teams and the people who are working with those young people. So if you could pass on our thanks to the team, I'd be grateful. In terms of the family hubs, yeah, obviously we've been seeing the opening of the family hubs, which as a advocate of Sure Start, I will encourage anything that provides support to families. And certainly if you're looking for a family hub that already has got the ability to go straight up to 18, please come and visit Braunston, because it's in a secondary school. It's in the grounds of a secondary school. So actually being able to look at those families from naught through to teenage years, there's one that you could definitely come and have a look at in Braunston. You would be always welcome. In terms of the funding for family hubs, I'm aware that the funding has sort of got an end date, so I'd be interested to hear from the lead member about how we are going to continue. I think is it May next year? May 2024 was in the original documents from memory. So if you could elaborate how that will be extended beyond that life in our current financial position at county, I'd be really grateful. And very similar question to yourself with the lead member that I asked of the leader is 4,711 children have access to facilities, which is excellent. I think there are about 14,500 children that are entitled to a free school meal across the county. So how are we getting to those most vulnerable young people and ensuring that they can engage in those? Dodgeball, if you want to have a go, Deborah, we've got a dodgeball session at our community fair on the 5th of August. You would be welcome. I mean, in terms, and finally, in terms of volunteers, volunteering is it's a really, I always think volunteering is a really positive activity. It's something that really does enhance people's own well-being, and I think people are often surprised when they volunteer. They didn't expect anything to get back to themselves. They did it for other people, but actually people get huge amount of value from volunteering. And just the fact that you mentioned the community fridge, we've got a recent community fridge that's been set up in one of our churches in Braunston Town, and I think the value and the energy and the effort that goes behind any of these volunteering activities is immense. So, more of a thank you to our volunteers in Leicestershire, because their work doesn't go unnoticed, and I think they provide a huge contribution to Leicestershire. Thank you.
Mrs. Hack. Mr. Walsh. Sorry, Mr. Mullaney. Your colleague got...
Thank you, Chairman. I wonder if I can ask the lead member to sort of explain the difference. Many members will remember family centres and what we got out of family centres. I wonder if the lead member can sort of just tease us through the differences between the hubs and the family centres. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Welsh. Mr. Mullaney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In terms of the Ofsted visit, I also pass on my appreciation to all those officers involved in achieving that positive review, and also to all the social workers who do a very important role in Leicestershire supporting families, a very difficult job. So I offer my appreciation to their dedication for their work as well. In terms of family hubs, I attended the opening of the family hub in Hinckley last week, and I'm sure this will be a facility that is hopefully well used in the town and can be supported going forward. And in terms of volunteers, I'm glad that we're supporting volunteers and that that's been acknowledged, and I also add my appreciation to all the work that the volunteers do to support the delivery of services, especially at these difficult times. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mullaney. Mrs. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for everyone for their comments. Firstly, to Craig, thank you very much for standing in for me in Melton, and obviously getting the photo of where I was nearly knocked out by a board. So that's circulated on social media, so I'm sure you can find that. And I do support his suggestion that prevention is key. We're much better to produce healthy children than we are to try and put services when we hit crisis point. On to Amanda, thank you very much for your congratulations for the Ofsted. I'm sure they'll pass on. I will definitely visit Braunston, and I've just managed to pick up my email. I'll be there on the 5th of September, so I look forward to seeing you then at Braunston Town Family Hub. There is a list circulating, I think, that was shared at the Children and Families Overview and Scrutiny of the list of the Family Hub's opening, so I shall see you then. In regard to the funding continue, this is for us to enable us to set up, get the training, and then it will be a train the trainer process as we go, so it will become business as usual. So we'll be training our staff that will then go out and train all the other community centres or parishes or boroughs that want to become a family hub. We'll be able to train those in-house. And also the funding is helping us set up the website and things like that. So once everything's set up and we've got all the training under our belt, it will become business as usual. But, you know, if the government want to give some more money, I'm not going to turn it down, but it will become business as usual as they move forward. And in regard to your reaching out to the free school meals and those vulnerable families, you know, we're trying as hard as we can, but I would appreciate members' support. We go to all the schools as much as we can out there, but if you know of families or people within your local area, please sign them to the household, because it's free for them to put their children in during the summer holidays, and they get a healthy meal and they get all their activities, and there's some fabulous events that happen. So I think it is reliant on us within our own areas to push that forward and make sure that our families are aware of what's happening. So if you can all push that in your local area, that would be great. On to Jeff, your difference between family centres and the hubs. The family centres were 0 to 5-year-olds. That's all they did. So they didn't put anything else after school. So the difference with family hubs is it's for children 0 to 19 and those up to 25 we send. So it's a whole family approach. And it's not just about a physical centre, it's all that wraparound support that we're putting. The website is working with our health colleagues, midwifery, breastfeeding clinics, all that sort of stuff. But it also helps families that go there. They might go to a breastfeeding clinic and they say, well, I've got a problem with my rent or claiming benefits, but all that support will be able to be found in that one spot. So that's the difference for me between that. And Michael, thank you very much for your support, and great to see you at the opening of our last family hub. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Very much. We now move on to the lead member for resources. So I now invite the lead member to make his position statement. Again, if you wish to speak, please raise your hands I will then call you to speak. Again, if Mrs Hack or Mr Mullaney wish to speak, I will call them last before the lead member's right of reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Financial position, first of all. The County Council approved our budget in February, and now that we're a quarter of the way through the year, it felt an opportune time to provide a brief update to members. The inflationary pressures impacting the Council and our residents have not yet reduced at the rate that we would have hoped. This is likely to drive requests from our suppliers looking to pass cost increases on to us, and is influencing the unions who are currently balloting for strike action in response to the current national pay offer. In the short term, whilst this is no comfort for mortgage customers, the Council is in the fortunate position of interest and business rate income being bolstered, allowing the extra costs to be largely offset. However, the medium term, the inflationary pressures will be baked into our cost base, but the income benefits will start to fall away as base rates reduce and the business rate baseline is reset. The economy has been more resilient than most commentators had expected, but if it does shrink significantly through a recession, it could introduce a new raft of income and cost challenges. Although inflation is our main challenge, we cannot lose sight of the service pressures that we face. Social care and special educational needs continue to require additional financial resources, and how we manage this remains the key influence in our long financial position. In summary, our short-term position looks manageable, but demand for our services keeps the medium-term position challenging. The level of uncertainty is higher than usual, with key reforms to funding and adult social care postponed until the next Parliament. We must continue our approach of being prepared for bad news and solve our problems locally. On funding reform, any update on finances obviously wouldn't be complete without mentioning funding reform. At the last meeting of Council, the Leader provided an update on our meeting with the Chancellor that was kindly arranged and supported by all our Leicestershire MPs. Arrangements are still being made to meet with Lee Rowley MP and the Minister for Local Government. We expect this now to take place in the autumn. The Leader did highlight that Richard Hunt had been down to the House of Parliament to speak on how we deliver our support. Another opportunity for us to highlight we're performing with lower funding, but we are getting the message across on a constant basis. I'd now like to share some positive news. The Leader spoke of the greener Leicestershire agenda, and the good news that the energy team has successfully bid for and been awarded £200,000 that will fund a project to help us identify the best routes to decarbonise the property estate and the anticipated costs. The plan will be used to produce a pipeline of capital projects that will allow us to prioritise our expenditure and put us in a great position to bid for further funding. This is a real and tangible boost to progress ourselves towards net zero. Statement of accounts. There are regular items in the local government press about problems in local government audit market. By the start of this financial year, only 1 in 6 councils had had their 21-22 accounts signed off by their auditor. I am pleased to say that we are part of that exclusive group. If members are interested, the latest County Council accounts are available on the website. And finally, I'll just mention the Director of Corporate Resources. At the last meeting, the Chairman announced that Chris Tambini's departure from the Council. I am pleased to welcome Declan Keegan into the role of Director of Corporate Resources. Declan's promotion is well deserved and he'll do a very good job. This then left a vacancy in Assistant Director of Finance position, and I'm pleased to announce that this has now been filled by Simone Hines, who currently works for Sandwell Council, and she's due to start with us in September. I'm sure that members will join me in wishing Declan and Simone all the very best in their new roles. Thank you.
Mr. Brecken. No one's indicated, so if not, I'll ask Mrs. Hack. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of quick ones from me. I think the paper recognises it really well in terms of the impact of inflation and how this is starting to really affect our communities out there, particularly those with mortgage customers, but clearly those renters that have their increase of mortgage passed on into the rent. I think it's going to start having some biting effects for our public, as well as impacts on the council. So that's certainly something that we're going to need to keep a close eye on as things progress. I wondered whether or not the lead member had an update on any response received from government on our motion that we pushed through last time, which with regards specifically around additional funding about special educational needs because of the acute issues that we know that we've been looking at for a little while. Didn't know if you had an update on that for us, please. In terms of decarbonisation funding, one of the things that it was noted during my time on environment and climate change scrutiny was the status of maintained schools and the impact of them within our estate, and whether or not that covered our maintained school estate as well as our county estate. And of course, I wish Chris Tambini every success in his new role, and welcome Simone when she arrives in September. Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Hack. Mr. Mullaney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too welcome Declan to his new role and Simone to the authority. In terms of funding reform, as we can see, we are still waiting for fair funding, and we need fair funding. And if we continue to provide services locally at a sufficient level, we need that extra support. And we see the struggles and pressures on our budget in decisions such as, for example, the decision to end the Shire grants and environment Shire grants next year. It's therefore disappointing that the implementation of the fair funding review is now being delayed until, I think, at least April 2025. We've waited so long for fair funding and we're still waiting. And, you know, as has been said in the past, you know, when Mr. Sunak was local government minister, he said he supported our cause. When he was Chancellor, he said he supported our cause. Now he's Prime Minister, he says he supported our cause. And we're still waiting, and it really isn't good enough. In terms of the financial situation, it suffered a double blow locally, of course, though, as well as the failure of delivery on fair funding, which, as the statement states, the problem of inflation. When estimates were being made a year or two ago at the County Council, we expected inflation rates to be lower than they in fact turned out, which has meant that we've ended up with greater than expected budget deficits and a greater challenge that we have to try and deal with. Now, we mentioned Mr. Sunak a moment ago. I note that his first of his 5 pledges is to halve inflation. We hope that he does that because every month that inflation stays high, those extra costs are baked in and you get the compound increases in our costs. It was therefore quite disappointing last month to see that inflation actually went up slightly to 7.9%, the only one of the G7 to experience that. And if we are going to keep seeing the failure to deliver the halving of inflation, that's going to mean more increases. But even if Mr. Sunak manages to deliver on that, halving inflation does not mean costs go down. All it means is they just keep going up, but just at a slightly lower rate than they were before. So we are still in trouble. So we have 2 real key problems: the failure to deliver fair funding and the failure to yet deal with inflation. And unless those 2 problems are dealt with, then sadly this county is going to continue to be in a very challenging financial situation, and residents sadly are going to lose out with reductions in services.
Thank you, Mr. Mullaney. Mr. Brecon. Oh, hold on. Mr.
Yeah, sorry, I'm late coming to the debate, but I just want to thank the lead member for resources for including the decarbonisation funding section in his statement. I've said it before in this chamber that I think in many respects Leicestershire County Council are ahead of the curve in identifying the green agenda and the environmental sustainability agenda to be key to our corporate operations. And if you look at our annual delivery statement, we have a new theme here at the County Council, which is clean and green. But in that, it's to use resources in an environmentally sustainable way. Now, I know that broadly this is an agenda that cuts across all parties and the vast majority of people are in favour of, but I still receive emails from residents and taxpayers in Leicestershire who are concerned that the cost of living is directly off the back of the green agenda, if you like. And whilst I don't share that view, I'd like to reassure those people that might be listening to our debate today that this county council does procure grants and does bid for external funding, not only to keep check of our own carbonisation agenda and reducing our own carbon emissions as an organisation by 2030, but it's not directly off the back of council taxpayers. We are forever, as an organisation, as every other major organisation out there, are seeking ways to get more environmentally friendly and become much more environmentally sustainable as an organisation. And this is done clearly, as the lead member has suggested in his report, through a bid. So I welcome this money and I welcome the use of this money.
Thank you, Mr Payne. Mr Breckin.
Thank you, Chairman. Amanda, I think all we can do on the funding is keep chasing and pressing government for fair funding. We are at the moment going through what we class as the Star Chamber process. We're looking at the current MTFS. I mean, short term, the MTFS is manageable for the next 2 years, but the medium term to long term, it's that picture of funding will help us out. But at the moment, we are still pressing on that. We are looking at the current, we've got £5 million worth of efficiency savings to make this year. We've got £15 million in the budget for next year. And yeah, we are on track at the moment with those figures. So that's why we can say that the short term is manageable. So we're looking positive on that. I don't think there's anyone on this side of the chamber that would disagree that this county council requires and needs fair funding. It deserves fair funding, and we'll keep on pushing for that. Thank Blake for his comments on the decarbonisation funding. Great work by officers here to go out and get grants that then allows us to look for ways to get more monies. You talked about the maintained schools estates. I can get you a detailed answer on that, and I'll get that from officers back to you. So, and I think, Michael, I mean, yes, we do need more support from government. I mean, I wrote that down when you answered an earlier point to sort of the leader. I think we are, yeah, short term, we are aware of the issues we've got. We'll keep on pushing. And I think internally, we're getting to the point when our services are stretched, our services are creaking. But the officers keep delivering. We keep changing the way we operate. Good work from Newton Europe in both children's and adults are helping those pressures and deliver savings, do business and the ways of working more effectively. But I think a lot of what you talk about is probably national politics and finance. Obviously, we're here today looking at local politics and local county finances. That's all I can influence. But as a group, we are very keen to make sure our MPs, as well as government, hear our pledge for fair funding, and that will keep on being delivered. So thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr Breckin. Now we move on to agenda item number 6, report of the Cabinet. And this is, item A on here anyway, is the Hinckley National Rail Freight Interchange. And I think Mrs Ritson is going to move it. Please.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Council and the officers for submitting such a detailed document showing all the concerns regarding this application. It's worrying that so much information is either not supported by the Council or is missing or lacking, especially as this will have a great impact on the number of small villages, railways and road networks, and not just local to the actual site, but will have an effect much wider across the county. And I find it very surprising with the size and impact of this proposed development that this information isn't forthcoming. It will impact greatly on Blaby District and Hinckley and Bosworth, but that will be felt not just in the immediate villages, but out to Enderby and Narber, affecting the railway. We'll have HGVs going through small village centres and causing congestion without appropriate mitigation. It's obvious from the report submitted that a lot of this detail hasn't been considered, and that's a real issue for the residents and for the councils across the area. The impact on public health, especially for the vulnerable, hasn't been considered adequately, nor has housing demand. The greenhouse gas emissions post-mitigation equate to 5% increase in Leicestershire's carbon baseline, and the railway capacity together with the Croft Quarry operation has not been considered. These are all really huge issues. There's also concern that some data sets being used are incorrect, especially in relation to public health, not to mention the issues regarding air quality and active travel. I would like to propose that we note this report and the delegation of duty to the Chief Executive to ensure we meet deadlines in the process, and would hope that the relevant information would be forthcoming urgently so that the analysis and modelling can be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ritson. Mr. O'Shea, you got a second?
Yes, I'll certainly second it, and I'd just like to emphasise what Louisa said. If this does happen, it's going to have a devastating effect on the villages around the area, both in Blaby and in Hinckley and Bosworth. But it'll have a devastating effect on the highway network, which I'm lead member for. I'm very concerned about the proposals. They don't seem to be well thought out. They've not looked at the junctions. They've done in my eyes, they've done it on the back of a fag packet. We need to look at this, you know, in the whole. The government needs to look at this in the whole. So I formally will happily second this and thank the officers for the work they've done to try and protect our area.
Thanks very much, Mr. O'Shea. Mrs. Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm really pleased to read such robust submission by county officers and endorsement by Cabinet to the relevant representations for this Hinckley National Rail Freight Interchange proposal. Many members will know that this is the latest stage in a 6-part application process for a massive scheme located on 268 hectares of land southwest of Elmthorpe Village. As divisional member for this project, I have spoken publicly many times about the inadequacy of this application and the devastation it will bring to my local communities. The detail in the report again reflects the enormous shortcomings of the application and the lack of appropriate mitigations. So much key information is absent or insufficient. There is no agreement at this late stage regarding 12 key points relating to highways alone, and as such no agreement to the fundamental principles of the Red Line Order, the Draft Development Consent Order and Section 106 Heads of Terms. Furthermore, the applicant has not demonstrated the specific market need for this scheme in this specific countryside location. I am also pleased to note that officers have extended the comments to encompass the subjects of strategic planning policy, public health, net zero and sustainability, social economic factors, ecology, flood risk and drainage, all concerns for my residents. This application, if built, will have significant negative impacts upon the natural and built environments of the Foss villages and surrounding areas. It will take traffic off the road from Felixstowe, but dump an extra 9,000 traffic movements plus a day here in my division. There appears to be no central strategic plans for the East Midlands regarding rail freight locations, those already in existence overlapping each other's operational area, and questions the requirement of yet another one. I thank officers, Cabinet and Mrs Richardson for proposing and her comments, and I wait with some daunting apprehension of the next instalment of this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. Mrs. Payne. It's Mrs. Page.
Thank you, Chairman. It's very hard to follow the 3 previous made comments, but I also hate to reiterate things, but I think on this occasion one needs to. I think it's kind of like Groundhog Day. Here we go again, and we're going round and round, and some who are more cynical than I am say it may be a foregone conclusion without taking in consideration those devastating effects. Now, whilst I hear these devastating effects, which have been so eloquently raised by Councillor Wright, have an effect on Blaby, but nobody has mentioned the Harbour District. We will also take a lot of the wider effects, which will have an effect on our housing requirements, on our road networks, and none of it has been considered. And I'm clearly deeply concerned what the event of this potential application will have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bill.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Like everybody else, I'm heartily sick of this subject, of speaking on it and of hearing about it. I first heard about it 5 years ago when I had a call from the reporter on the Hinckley Times who said what was my view on this massive development off Burbage Common. And it was the first I'd heard about it, and I expressed my opinion then, and I'm really fed up sort of expressing it over and over again. I'm embarrassed because I come from a railway family, and I passionately believe in the need to take freight off the roads and put them on the railways. I still live with the memory, if you like, of the closures of the 1950s, and I fought against the closures then, and ever since I've been fighting for restoration of services, both passengers and freight. And the Ivanhoe project is just a passing thing, which I was part of the initial working party, what was it, 40 years ago, and we might see it one day. Anyway, so I am embarrassed about this, but of course it is not a railway project. It never has been. It is simply an excuse to build yet more warehousing on a massive scale across the southwest of our county. It will never see a train, in my opinion. If it did, then perhaps we might welcome it. But like all the other similar projects that are in this area, very few freight trains actually use the premises. What we do see, of course, is all the massive lorry movements, which everybody else has referred to. I actually, there's a reference in the report to the major national network consultation, and I took part in that because I pointed out that something which has been referred to in that report, and that is that the free-for-all for these major projects is just leading to a plethora of massive warehouse developments close to the centre of the country. So within 20 miles of here, we've got something like a dozen or so projects either up and running or in the offing. And it's difficult to understand how they can be justified other than the fact that we are in the centre of the country. We are about 2.5 hours from Felixstowe, Liverpool and Harwich and Southampton, and therefore that's where everybody wants to build their warehouses, and this is what this is all about. So I do hope that our efforts are successful. I worry about the southwest of the county. I worry about the fact that if matters go ahead and everybody has all the developers have their way, we will not see any green fields or countryside between Earl Shilton and Stony Stanton. I mean, we all love Elmsthorpe, but it won't be there anymore. It's going to be totally swamped with 9,000 houses, I think, in addition to this development and other developments that are all coming on stream. So once a year, I think, at least once a year, we sing about our countryside, our green and pleasant land. But I would just advise anybody who believes in our green and pleasant land to go out and enjoy it now, because it's not going to be there much longer. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, I think you said you were going to speak. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. I'd also just like to thank officers for their very comprehensive report. I'd also like to note just how concerning and frustrating it is that for such a significant development that would have impacts across the county and beyond, that the developer has failed to engage with officers here and failed to produce any detailed information. This follows on from the public consultations, which are at best half-hearted and at worst a token gesture. Following on from Councillor Bill, the developer's own figures suggested that only 8% of the traffic would be by rail. Therefore, 92% of it's going to be by road. That is going to be highly interesting on the A5 and the M69. I'd just like to finish by saying, if there is a spade put in the ground, hopefully it'll be to bury these proposals once and for all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr Allen. Mrs Hack, do you want to say anything? Yep.
I think one of the things that's really frustrating, reading the information, which is excellent, by the way, the officers have done a great job, is this is hugely, a piece of strategic infrastructure with no strategy. And I think that this is, there is a real worry here. They called it a rail freight. I think Councillor Bill's right, it's an opportunity to build more warehouses, but it's a rail freight hub with no sustainable transport strategy. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But I think the frustrating thing for the communities who live directly next to the plans, but also further afield, I fully expect my division to be affected. In Braunstone Town, it's just up the M69, is the impact on our communities and the management of our communities are completely being ignored. They want to provide huge, apparently loads and loads of jobs for Leicestershire, but no way of getting people to those jobs. And it is, this happens time and time again. I think the real difficulty for us here is the ability for us to knock back these kinds of proposals become incredibly difficult, and we've struggled time and time again. But hopefully our officers and the work that we've done at least makes people listen. I think the last thing that is really concerning is just the impact that these kinds of strategic infrastructure projects has on the communities through the development phase. The fact that our communities don't feel listened to, that the system is stacked against them, and these kinds of approaches does nothing to allay those fears. And that for me is that public trust and confidence that actually these things are done in the right way, that the checks and balances are done, actually means that public lose confidence in us and what we do in terms of our representation. So I think there's some really important things for us to consider, and thank the officers again for the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Hack. Mr Mullany.
Thank you, Mr Chairman, and just to endorse the comments of all the previous members on this scheme, the reality is the proposed Hinckley National Rail Freight Interchange has many flaws in the plans which haven't been sorted. The plans are something that's very concerning to many residents in my area, in Hinckley and beyond. As a borough council in Hinckley and Bosworth, we have objected to these plans in the past, and I know that Blaby have objected as well. And we have consultation events that many of us attended and objected to the plans, but unfortunately there doesn't seem to have been a very receptive or listening response from the people behind this proposal. There's real worries that it's going to blight the Burbage Common Nature feature, and whilst it's being badged as a rail freight scheme, as David says, the reality is it's going to see many more lorries on local roads and is going to have a very negative impact on the highways, and they haven't really explained how they're going to mitigate that. So I support this report today, and I do hope that actually these rail freight plans will just be dropped, because I think they're very flawed, and we don't really need this flawed scheme. Thank you.
Very much, Mr Mullany. Mrs Richardson, the right of reply.
Just to say thank you to all the members for their comments. I think it's obvious that everyone in this chamber has the same concerns, so thank you.
Thank you very much. So we now move to a vote of motion. You've all got the motion in front of you, but perhaps I'll read it again just for the case. That the relevant representation of the County Council on the Hinckley National Rail Freight Interchange proposal, as set out in Appendix A, this was of the Cabinet report, to the Cabinet report be noted. All in favour? Oh, yeah. Okay. Any against? I think that's it. Thanks very much. Unanimous. Very good. So, move on to agenda item number 7, which is report of the Scrutiny Commission. Mr. Mullaney, you're going to move it, I think.
Thank
Annual
you,
report.
Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to present this year's annual scrutiny report, which highlights the excellent work by the Commission and the 5 other overview and scrutiny committees. Throughout the last year, Leicestershire's scrutiny bodies have been involved in an extensive range of work, providing challenges on a number of key decisions in advance of consideration by the Cabinet, as well as monitoring performance and in particular scrutinising the Council's finances. The purpose of scrutiny is to provide recommendations for improvement, and all of our scrutiny committees have worked hard to examine and question our Cabinet colleagues with a view to making improvements to decisions wherever possible. I'm impressed with the volume and quality of scrutiny and the number of recommendations it's made this year, and I'm confident this work will make a real difference to the people of Leicestershire. Leicestershire County Council has always taken great pride in the role of scrutiny and the value it can add in providing input into the decisions taken by the Cabinet and in helping to shape council policy on issues that are central to the lives of people living and working in the county. I hope this continues as we now go into another difficult financial year. As financial resources reduce, the importance of scrutiny becomes greater, as transparency is key for the public to have confidence in the Council and the decisions it makes. Like all local authorities, the Council faces unprecedented challenges, including the higher costs and inflation and general economic uncertainty. Climate change, high demand for adults and children's social care and SEND services as we continue to deal with the after effects of COVID-19 pandemic and our growing ageing population. This at a time when the Council continues to face a mounting degree of financial pressure. As a result, unfortunately, more difficult decisions are likely to lie ahead, and scrutiny must continue to play its part in examining the implications of these decisions and highlighting them to the Cabinet and alternatives. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all the members of the scrutiny panel for their excellent work over the year, and the Vice Chairman of the Commission, Mrs Page, for her work, and Mrs Hack and Mr Poland for their work, as the other scrutiny commissioners as well. For the support of officers in all departments that have provided information, requested and answered questions and attended scrutiny commissions. I'd also like to thank Jo Twomey for all the work that she does on the Scrutiny Commission, and I'd like to thank all our partners for their support and involvement in our work over the last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mullaney. Mrs Page, you're going to second.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Mullaney. And being mindful of the very important work the scrutiny function does, it would be remiss of me not to say a few words. So I'm also very pleased about the extent of the very good work that has been undertaken by all of the scrutiny committees over the last year. And I would like to pay tribute not only to all the council officers, but the staff working with our partner organisations for their continued dedication and the hard work throughout the year, and supporting all of us scrutiny members, keeping us informed and also answering very, very challenging questions we posed. I would also like to thank our co-opted members, members of the public who have contributed their time and raised a great number of questions at all of the scrutiny meetings throughout the year. It was very, very, well, actually I was surprised to see the increase of the viewing of the scrutiny online. So that means actually to me, and I hope it continues, that the importance of scrutiny is really appreciated, and it also plays a major role in the accountability of our decision making. And as Councillor Mulaney said, it's true, we face another tough year ahead as the County Council's financial position continues, and it will be difficult. But I think this County Council has always valued the role of scrutiny as a critical friend to all of us, including the Cabinet. And I think all of our scrutiny members are very committed to their role. And I like to take this opportunity to thank everybody for the positive, constructive approach. And thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Page. Mr. Poland.
Thank you, Chairman. Scrutiny at its best isn't opposition for opposition's sake. It's to challenge thoughts, to challenge process and to challenge action. And I think, certainly as one of the scrutiny commissioners here, I work with my colleagues, and I think we did that very, very well here at Leicestershire. Certainly from my point of view, the experience that colleagues have, the knowledge they bring to meetings, really not only challenges sort of what the officers are saying in the reports, but also helps my understanding and then challenges my thoughts on the process, which again it helps the scrutiny process and helps me no end. So really, as I say, as a scrutiny commissioner, I wanted to thank colleagues for the very constructive and positive way that they engage with the scrutiny process. And really, to say, let's continue as we are here. This is where the value is added to what we do as an authority. And Mrs. Page talked about being a constructive friend, and that is exactly it. It's offering additional thought and additional value, and I'm sure colleagues in the administration absolutely take that on board, and I know for a fact that they do. So again, thank you very much, everyone, for the work that you've done over the last year.
Mr. Rushton.
Thank you, Chairman. As leader and on behalf of the Cabinet, can I say scrutiny, I think we do it well here. I think we resource it correctly. I think we respect the conclusions that scrutiny reaches. And I want to formally thank Michael, Rosita, James and Amanda for the work they do as commissioners. Also thank all our chairmen on my side for the work they do, and all the members of scrutiny, and particularly some of those that do more than others that have to volunteer when people can't get. And just to say, we value you and we thank you for the work you do.
Thank you, Mr. Rushton. Mr. Mulaney, you have the right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to echo the comments of Mrs. Page, Mr. Poland and Mr. Rushton, I think we work in a cooperative way as scrutiny commissioners, and I think all the scrutiny commissions do their best to hold to account the decisions that are taken. So really just to say thank you to everybody who's members of all the scrutiny commissions and for all the work they do on the council.
Thank you, Mr. Mulaney. We'll now put it to a vote on the motion. I'll read that out. That the information contained in the Overview and Scrutiny Annual Report 2022-23, attached as Appendix A to the papers, on its activities be noted. All in favour? Gosh, doing it again. Yeah. None in favour? No against? No. Brilliant. Thank you very much. To the Independent Remuneration Panel on Members' Allowances that Mr. Rushton is going to move.
Thank you, Chairman. We do have an independent remuneration panel on members' allowances. Its recommendations are at A, B and C, and I formally move them.
Mrs. Taylor, again, second.
I'll formally second and reserve my right to speak.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak on the motion? Right of reply. You're going to add your comments, won't you? Yeah? So I think it's take a vote on the motion then. All in favour? Gosh, take it again, aren't we? Yeah. None against? No, thank you very much. Mr Rushton again.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I formally move that Mr G Grimes and Mr A Maxfield be appointed to serve as independent members of the Corporate Governance Committee for a term of 2 years up to the May Annual Council meeting in 2025?
Thank you. And Mrs Taylor?
I'll formally second, Mr Chairman, and reserve my right again.
Thank you very much. Rushton, you're okay, fine. Just in case. Keep you up and down. Now we'll take a vote on the motion, therefore, all in favour? Cheapers. Yep, thank you very much. No one against? Yeah. Control and Regulatory Board. First part is Leicestershire County Council Country Parks Bylaws. Mr Phillimore, you're going to move it.
Thank you, Mr Chairman, and good afternoon, members. Few words, please, if I may. So the report before you today follows the formal consultation ending on the 23rd of February this year. The DCRB considered the bylaw proposal set out before you, and Appendix A on the 22nd of June 2023. I would like to emphasise that the members of the DCRB raised a number of queries during that meeting, specifically relating to dogs on lead, and the point about assistance dogs was correctly highlighted by a member. E-scooters in particular, fish or birds, and the music and entertainment, and I thank members for those questions on the proposal. Members were satisfied with the officer's explanation as to how those matters would be dealt with or addressed by the wording within the proposed bylaws or by the enforcement officer's discretion to apply those bylaws. All amendments are highlighted in red in Appendix A, with Appendix B detailing each of the applicable parks and recreation areas. I now seek, therefore, Council's approval that the Director of Law and Governance be authorised to A, make and seal bylaws as appropriate for each of the country parks listed in accordance with the details set out at Appendix A to this report, and to revoke all previous bylaws on those sites, and B, to advertise the making of and seek confirmation by the Secretary of State of these bylaws. Thank you, Mr Chairman.
Thank you, Mr Phillimore. And Mr Lovegrave, you're going to second.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Happily to formally second the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody wish to make any comments? Mr Phillimore, do you wish to outright have reply to the no comments?
Only to thank members for their questioning skills at the meeting. Thank you.
So we'll now vote on the motion that Mr Phillimore read out. All in favour? Gosh. Yep. Everybody again. Thank you. Agenda item 10, therefore, appointments in accordance with item 11 of Standing Order. This is to appoint such Cabinet support members as the Council considers appropriate. Mr Shepherd, you're going to move the motion.
Thank you, Chairman. I move that Mr C. Smith, CC, be appointed as Cabinet support member until the next annual meeting of the County Council, as provided for in Article 7 of the Council's Constitution.
Thank you very much. Mrs Fry.
Thank you very much, and I have great pleasure in seconding this motion, and I know that Mr Smith will be a very good support member, having worked with him the last couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone wish to make any comments? Mr Shepherd? No comments? Just asking. take a vote on the motion. So the motion has just been read out by Mr Shepherd. All in favour? Ah. Yeah. And I presume abstentions. Got the bet on at 20-4. You've just won.